All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been coming at you with a series of video presentations for the Rankin Technical College AWD Application and Web Development 1111 .NET Framework with Web Databases class. The main text we're using for the class is ASP.NET MVC with Entity Framework and CSS, but first I've decided to go over several chapters in Professional ASP.NET MVC 5 by John Galloway of Microsoft and others. The reason for going over those, just so you know, is I believe that this is a more fundamental text and it provides a better understanding. All right, I think it'll help us when we get into the other text. So the next thing that's in here is unobtrusive JavaScript. If you remember, I'm just going to give you a little aside for a second, that one of the things that we talked about when we started to talk about Model View Controller, or MVC, was the fact that one of the cool things that MVC does is it allows for a separation of concerns. In other words, your URLs can be handled by the controller. Your data and your business logic can be handled by your models. Your user interface can be handled by your views. The three can communicate directly or indirectly with one another, but there is that separation of concerns. All right? Well, with unobtrusive JavaScript, you get the same kind of an idea. The idea is that when you work on a website, your content is put into your HTML, your hypertext markup language. Your presentation, making stuff colorful, etc., that's put into your CSS or cascading style sheets. Your interactivity is put into your .js or JavaScript files. So with unobtrusive JavaScript, what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep the JavaScript separate from the HTML and from the CSS. You used to have things like this where you put the JavaScript right in there. The idea is you don't want to do that. So, unobtrusive JavaScript also allows you to employ a strategy known as progressive enhancement. There are two terms here. One is shown here and one we can discuss. They are progressive enhancement and, I can't even remember the name of the other one now. Graceful degradation, I believe it is. With progressive enhancement, all right, what you can do is you can set your website up and write, for example, a minimal page. So if the user is using a very old browser and has JavaScript turned off, etc., they can still see something. But as they get a better browser and they have more features turned on, they'll have a better website experience. So you start with nothing and you build your way up. With graceful degradation, it's basically the opposite. You expect the user has the best, latest and greatest browser, etc., and all the bells and whistles, and you build your way down. So ASP.NET MVC 5 takes an unobtrusive approach to JavaScript. Rather than emitting JavaScript code into a view, the framework sprinkles metadata into HTML attributes. Using JavaScript, the framework can find and interpret that metadata. So it says, to see this in action, let's start by taking a look at how to use jQuery in an MVC application. You may or may not have noticed, and let me just grab this. All right, we'll grab one of the ones that we've been working with in here, that MVC music store. And I'm not going to do a thing with it other than to show you this. So come down here, recent files, etc. Here was the last one we did, which this is the original one, MVC Music Store 2. That's the one I started with. So as we load this, you may or may not remember this, but when we come here, what we got when we started here, when we completely started, let's remember what was in here then. We had our references, We had an app data folder, I think we did, with nothing in it. We had an app start folder with this stuff in it. We had a content folder. We had a controllers, a fonts, a models, no samples folder, a scripts, and a views folder. Why am I telling you this? Because if you look under scripts, we've got a bunch of JS files in here, including jQuery-1.10.2.js and .min.js. So we have jQuery that was given to us out of the box. And that's what they're showing in here. Now, it's an older form of jQuery because it's 1.10.2. And if you remember, when we looked on the jQuery website, the newest version was 3.3.1, I think it was. It says here, because jQuery is so commonly used, a jQuery script reference is included in the footer at /views/shared/_layout.cshtml. Says, although a simple script reference as shown earlier works, it's version dependent. If you want to update to a newer version of jQuery, you must search through your code and replace all those. A better way of including jQuery then is to use what's called a bundled reference. All right. So when you do this, it tells the system to basically go in there and where you've got jQuery defined, go in and use it. In addition to simplifying script updates in the future, it also provides a number of other benefits, such as automatic script minification, etc. All right. The jQuery library is actually included in the project template. All right, but there's other jQuery things that you can look at or look for as well. And I believe that if I come back into here, all right, you've already seen this stuff. But if I come in and I go to View, Other Windows, and I go to my Package Manager console, yeah, I don't want to do it from there. I can, but I don't want to do it from there. I'm not as expert in that, if I'm expert in anything. I'm going to right mouse click on here, and I'm going to choose Manage Nuget Packages. That's going to bring this up in a GUI mode. All right, notice there's jQuery. There's jQuery validation, etc. If I browse and I come over here and I type in jQuery, all right, it's going to show me everything that's available to me in jQuery. Now with a bunch of the stuff here, of course, as you'd guess, it's already been loaded for me. But if I wanted to load additional things, I'd be able to come over here and do that. When you write your own custom JavaScript code, you can add your code into new files in a scripts directory. So you can put your own stuff down here. More often than not, what people do is they add their own subdirectory down here. And they put their stuff in there. All right. Bottom of page 222. Placing scripts in sections. Rather than just, whoops. The author says here, rather than just writing out scripts inline, in individual views, you can inject scripts into output using razor-defined sections of where your scripts should appear. This example shows how to place it at the bottom of the views home index, so in your index thing, right there. This approach, as mentioned here on the bottom of the page, here on 223, it says this section approach allows you to have precise placement of script tags, so you can put it where you want it to go. What about all these other scripts that are in the scripts folder? And you can notice here there's a lot of them. Okay? Let's just keep that up there for a minute. It says it looks like quite a list, but really there's only 6 libraries. All right, well, what does that mean? Well, the first one there, that underscore references, is a list of JavaScript libraries in the project. And it's written out using // or what are referred to as XML comments. There's a bunch of files that are in here. Notice there's bootstrap.js and bootstrap.min.js. These are the same files, except the one with the .min has been minified. So again, any unnecessary white space has been taken out. So this is Bootstrap. That's the jQuery itself. That's a minmap file. A minmap file is a source map file, where a source map allows browsers to map minified compiled code back to the original code that was authored. All right, we've got some other stuff in here, some validation stuff, some unobtrusive stuff. We've already talked about what unobtrusive means, and some of the stuff here like modernizer that's here at the end, for lack of better words, what modernizer is it's a JavaScript library that helps modernize older browsers. So it helps older browsers be able to better understand the new HTML5 elements. All right. The respond things that are in here, it's a JavaScript library that's included because it's required by Bootstrap. It's known as polyfill. It adds support for newer browser standards to older browsers. These files here are designed to work in concert with one another. All right. The files with unobtrusive in the name are written by Microsoft. These files integrate with jQuery and the MVC framework to provide the unobtrusive JavaScript features that we talked about earlier. Okay, there we go. All right, that brings us to Ajax Helpers. It says you've seen the HTML helpers. We talked about those before. And remember, you can use those to create forms and links that point to controller actions. You also have a set of Ajax helpers in Asp.NET Mvc. These helpers also help create forms and links that point to controller actions, but they behave asynchronously. Using these, you don't need to write any script code to make the ability to do things in an asynchronous method work. Behind the scenes, it says here, these depend on the unobtrusive MVC extensions to jQuery that we've talked a little bit about earlier. So that's why we need that reference that's shown right here. All right. Adding the unobtrusive Ajax script to a project. As it says here on the bottom of page 226 and 225 and going on. It says adding unobtrusive Ajax script to a project is fairly easy using Nuget. Right-click on the project, open the Nuget package dialog, search for Microsoft jQuery Unobtrusive JavaScript, kind of what I just showed you. You can also install it using the package manager if you know the right commands. So the advantage of using the package manager, set it and forget it. Get in there, get out. The disadvantage is you have to know what something is called. You can either add a script reference in the application's layout view, as they mention right here, or just in views that will be using the Ajax helpers. bottom of page 227 and going onward, Ajax helpers are available through the Ajax property inside a Razor view. Like HTML helpers, most of these are extension methods. For instance, the action link method of the Ajax property creates an anchor tag with asynchronous behavior. And they show an example right here. Again, it's not my point in here to go over all these code examples and explain them in detail. All right? Typically, I get what's going on, but I have to take a look at it myself. If you want more of an explanation of that code, just look on the rest of page 227. On the top of 228 here, they talk about random ordering in a link query. And it says the above code is selecting a random album using a neat trick. Okay? And the bottom line is you're using link, and if you want more information, you can go out to that Stack Overflow listing. The target action for an Ajax action can return plain text, or it can return XML. I'm sorry, HTML. It says here on the top of page 229, now is where when the user clicks the link, an asynchronous request is sent to the daily deal action of the home controller. After that action returns the HTML from the rendered view, the script behind the scenes takes that HTML and places it within the daily deal. What does this mean? Well, the idea is you can change things on the fly. So as an example with this daily deal, you could go and run a link query to find out what albums were selling the best or selling the worst. And you could change this at a moment's notice. After the user clicks the button that says click here to see today's special, it does a partial page refresh, not a full page refresh. All right. It keeps these up here, but then it adds this. And it says here, to see this in action, view the Music Store Chapter C08 action link code sample. Well, I did add that one, remember? No, I don't want to do this. I don't want to run this. I've been running all my stuff in 2015. So let's run this and see what it looks like. Always want to be cognizant of my time. I'm almost at 20 minutes, so we'll do this, and then this will be it for this particular lesson. Good. This is more meant to look like the completed Music Store project. Notice there's the animation being done with jQuery. Have it get 25 pixels bigger and then shrink by 25. So it's got the effect of animating. Now notice when I click to see today's special, what happened? Well, it added this down here. I'm going to come back here again. Notice there's nothing here now. I'm at the bottom of the page. But if I click this, it expands the page to show me this. but it didn't have to do a redraw here, and that's what the author is showing. All right, before we go on page 230 to HTML5 attributes, which is next, let's stop the presentation and we'll pick it up in the next portion in just a couple minutes.